Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, badass.
Good morning. I'm so excited about today. I don't know what it is. I started off today just in a really good mood. I went in and woke up my daughter, and she was not having it. I posted about this, and I was thinking about today being Friday, and so I started singing last day of the week. And so I started singing that to her, and she's just like, okay, Mom.
She's like, shut the fuck.
She did not want to go to school. She was like, no, I don't want to go.
You're like, but it's the last day.
I know.
And then you bust into it again.
I did. Yep. So I don't know if people know what that actual song is, and whether they do that, I will hear music. Like, people will say things and I'll immediately think of a song, or I'll think of a song and change the lyrics.
I do that all the time, but no, it's not that I do. What I do is I will sing something ridiculous. So like, instead of saying it to the kids, I will sing it. So I'll be like, did you wash your fucking hands? They'll be like, yeah, Mom, I did. I'll be like, yep. Thank you, because I don't want poop all over the house. And they'll be like, you're insane.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, as everybody's coming in, please say hello. I already see we have Miss Myra joining us. Good morning,
Myra.
And so she is coming out of Tennessee, Vol State.
Good morning, Myra. I feel like it's been a while since I've seen Myra.
Yeah, I think it has been. Or I think she said hello to me after the fact or at the very end. She remains quiet sometimes, which is hilarious because if you ever meet Myra in person, she is not a quiet person.
No. I mean, having met Carmen, I would find that strange to believe, right?
Yeah.
Carmen is not quite either. I think they're fairly similar, right?
Personality-wise, I think there's some differences, but they're identical twins.
Right.
And so they have a funny stories growing up as well. And so she's given us some a tongue and then also laughing. Oh no, that's a kiss, I think. And so, but it was funny, Jay the other day, he was talking about, we had them at the cabin a while back, and he was like, that was the best time I've ever had at the cabin. He was like, we need to have them back. Like, we were doing karaoke. Myra had brought a karaoke machine, and we were just singing outside, and some people were renting the cabin next to us, and they thought we had like 100 people there partying, and it was just the four of us. And they were like, we were debating on coming over, and they were like, it sounded like you were having a really good party. And Jay was like, yeah, it was just four of us. And they were like, what?
Oh, I love that. That used to actually happen to Jenna and I when we lived in Milwaukee. We lived in this, very urban neighborhood where, the houses are kind of all on top of each other. And our house happened to have a balcony, but where we were situated on the block, we were kind of like above a bunch of other houses, this balcony. And the first couple of times we had just a couple of people over, we're hanging out, our neighbor friends would be like, why are you having these parties and you're not inviting us? Like, we thought you liked us. And we were like, no, it was just a dinner party with like two friends. And they were like, well, we could just hear Kate's laugh and it sounded like it was such a good time.
Well, I mean, you guys bring a party with you in general, just with your entire family.
Right.
So...
Right. We are the party.
All right, we got some more people coming in. So Jen saying, "Good morning, badasses. Happy Friday. Sending love from the Sunshine State. Yes, have a wonderful day. I'm in and out as usual, listening, and got to work and pay the bills." And so I heard today that Florida's supposed to get snow.
Oh my God.
We're supposed to get snow again here in Georgia, is what I heard. And I heard that it's possibly even going to be in Florida. I'm like, that's crazy.
That is like hell has frozen over. That is weird.
That is.
Gators do. That's great.
I mean, they can't use the snowplow that Tennessee and and Georgia already share. So
Right. There's another one.
that's right. All right. Maria says, "Morning, y'all. Good morning, Maria." And so she's like, "What, snow?"
She's moving further south.
Oh, all right. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. How about it?
Sure. Yeah. I wanted to say one more thing. Maria and I are going to be chatting later today, and I'm super excited about it.
What are you guys talking about? You're pondering?
Jenna got me these in my stocking for Christmas, and I've been waiting to when we wear a long sleeve shirt to use them. I think I should pose like this.
Yes. I think it would make a lovely photo.
Yeah.
It goes well with that weird photos that you guys did of like the awkward photos.
Awkward 70s photos. Oh my God. We should repost those on BOYBAS. Oh my God. Those were the worst. Oh my God. They were such a good time though.
She said those are amazing.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I am going to a 70s party. So I have a friend that's having a birthday, and we're going down, and it's for people that are in Atlanta, it's the Claremont Hotel, which also is the Claremont Lounge. So if you guys know anything about that, look it up. Going to be quite an interesting night. But he has booked a section in the Claremont Lounge. So I won't tell you anymore. Go look it up. It will be my first experience there, but my hope is that Blondie will be there. So I'll just leave you with that.
All right. Can't wait to look it up. I can't right now. I'm doing a live stream, guys.
I know, but you'll love it later on. Carmen, she said, "Good morning, my beautiful badasses. Let's go."
Let's go. Excited. Thank you guys for being here. We're not getting LinkedIn people, so I wonder what's going on.
Yeah, I did have to reconnect to LinkedIn, so I'm not sure. I did say that it connected, so I'm hoping that everybody is connecting from LinkedIn. So I did do that this morning, and I do show that it's successful. So hopefully I might go post while we bring Kasey, just reminding people here's the YouTube if anybody is having any issues. So I'll also take a look.
Yeah.
You want to do an introduction as we bring Kasey onto the stage and say hello and get us going?
Yeah. Awesome.
And let's see. Oh, all right. We made a sandwich. There we go.
Kasey sandwich.
Sorry, I was like trying to find it on LinkedIn while we were talking, and it was. I was listening. There was an echo. Sorry about that.
No problem. Good morning, Kasey. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah. So Kasey Jones is a entrepreneur, like with I don't know how many times over. How many different things that you have done.
I've had basically every type of a business a person. No, I mean, almost no OnlyFans, no real e-commerce, but like I've had every kind of service business a person could possibly have.
Yes. Yeah. And because of that, she's learned a shit ton and has made it her life's work now to help others. So she has offerings that she promotes on LinkedIn and elsewhere. The solo CEO offerings, which are really aimed to help you, as a solo entrepreneur, live your life's passion, to literally, grow the business and the life that you truly want. So I have been following Kasey for well over a year, becoming quite enamored with the way that she communicates with her audience, the way that she is super authentic. She's got badassery down to, damn near a science and an art. And I'm super excited to have you here, Kasey.
I'm so glad to be here. I can't believe it took you so freaking long to actually reach out if you've been following me for that long. Like, come on.
I know.
But I'm very grateful that you did. I'm very grateful that you did.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was like, just wanted to keep you for myself a little longer.
Well, real quick, I wanted to let you guys know it does seem to be an issue with LinkedIn. I see a lot of messages out from LinkedIn. So I'm just going to go back, and I have it up on my phone. So I'm going to be monitoring it along the way. So we do have Cindy Dalen Slade that's here. She says, morning, here from Tennessee, single digits next week. Kim Stamps is coming in as well. And she says, crazy. Teresa, she said, laugh my fucking ass off, Kate. I love the tiny hands. Everybody's laughing at your hands. And so Eric Keynes is also saying, woot woot. Lee is saying, I think Blondie's daughter works there now. Oh, so whenever I go there, Chris is saying, I'm here, Chris Berryman. So we have lots of other people coming in. So guys, if you want to add comments that we can pull up, you might need to go to YouTube. So I did add in that link. So if you feel like you want to, interact with us, I'll do my best in following your notes, but just know that we are not seeing them here on the live stream, so we won't be able to pull them up. So I apologize for that. So Kasey, now that we got some of the logistic things taken care of this morning, what we would like to do is maybe just dive in a little bit. And I know Kate did a little bit of an introduction to you, but maybe talk a little bit more about who you are as a person and what are you passionate about?
Well, shit. Yeah. Okay. I guess I should have had a better prepared response to that. What I'm passionate about, I'm like really nerdy about several things. One, entrepreneurship, and it's for me, it's not just kind of work. It's sort of my life's purpose, and it's my hobby, and it's all these other things. That's how I get to meet really cool people. But also a super book nerd. So I read like an ungodly amount of books. I think novels alone, fiction only, 101 in 2024. So we're going to try to like beat that record a little bit. And yeah, and I live in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm like, love being outdoors and love being in beautiful places. Although I will also say I'm married to a Southerner. So I keep hearing Sarah, like these like little snippets, these little like this, it's like this like hint of a little Southern accent here and there. But I like that because Andy, my husband, is like, there's lots of Southerners that moved to Portland, Oregon. It's all the Southerners that then completely want to like get rid of their accent and they don't have it. My husband has a pretty thick North Carolina accent. And so like, there's a lot of people, he's lived here for 20 years. So it's, but there's a lot of people that can't understand a single freaking word that comes out of his mouth. And it's always like very endearing. And it's
I'm originally from Missouri, which has no accent, but I have been here more years in Georgia. But I will disagree. I do not have an accent, although
it's just like it's like there were just like one word here, one word there, and I'm like,
yes,
is that right? It's not consistent at all.
People from Wisconsin will say that because anything south of Wisconsin is south. So
It is.
And look, when you're and this is proven, when you're an empathetic person, you soak up accents. And so
Mhm.
I expect, like, it was really bad during COVID. Like, my husband has a thick freaking North Carolina accent, and I'd get on Zoom calls and people would be like, "Oh, are you from the South?" And I'd be like, "No, I just freaking live with a Southerner." And so I would like soak up certain things. I've had to sort of like consciously be like, "Kasey, you don't have a Southern accent. Stop trying to imitate one. Like, it's okay." So
Oh my God. So I didn't know that thing about empathetic people do that.
yeah,
That I'm sure Jenna is laughing her ass off right now because it is always hilarious to Jenna. Like, 'cause I will do that so fast and I don't know I'm doing it, but like it so much that like she worries it's coming across as racist because like we will go to like a Mexican restaurant or like a Japanese restaurant and like just interacting with the waiter or
it
waitress.
sounds like a condescending imitation, and you're like,
Yes.
oh.
Right. Jimmy's like, stop it. I'm like, what? I don't know what I'm doing. She's like,
Yeah.
come on. I'm like, no, I don't.
She's like, I'm just enjoying it.
Yes. Yes. So that is hilarious. But I'm a total, yeah, I'm a mocker. Like but not like in a bad way. Like I mimic things.
I mimic.
Yes. I mimic things. Yeah. Even when I'm watching her eat, sometimes I'll do like, the mom thing, like where like they watch where the baby eats. I'll be like, like start chewing at her.
Oh my Lord.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, we always say that Sarah has here in Wisconsin, when we talk about Sarah's accent, we say she has a classy Southern accent.
Oh. I did not know that about me, that you guys say that about me.
Yes. Since we started working with you, like when we first cold called you, that's what we said. We were like, oh, we talked to you. She's such a classy Southern accent.
Does that mean I say bless your heart?
You do not. But your husband is also from Beirut, right?
No, well, so he is of Lebanese descent.
Okay.
So I didn't know this. I learned this from him. There's a pretty like substantial Lebanese community in North Carolina. And so we went to Beirut together. He'd never been there before. But so his mom's side, like he's fourth generation American, but his mom's side they only married Lebanese. And so he's like 100, like he's full 50% Lebanese. And so he's one of the most like ethnically ambiguous looking people. And so all the time people are like, are you Mexican? Are you Middle Eastern? Like what,
Yes.
But yeah, I got to go to Beirut for work, and he came with me. And so we got to visit the like villages that his great grandparents emigrated from. And I shared that picture on LinkedIn and in my newsletter of us like on a hillside, and there's all these goats behind. And literally like we've been driving through this part of Lebanon, and we had to pull over to the side of the road because there were goats all over the road, like you couldn't get through. And so we were like, we need an impromptu photo shoot with the goats. We took all the pictures and we sent them to his mom, and his mom like freaked out because apparently Andy's great grandfather had been a goat herder before he left Lebanon. And so she was like, it was meant to be, like you're experiencing what your great grandfather did, and which was
very cool.
Yeah.
Which kind of draws me right into the law of rhythm, because you are slowly releasing, you're kind of dripping out your story of how you got into what you were doing. And it is very full of ups and downs. And it's been,
and we've only just gotten started. So there's a lot more to come. Don't you?
Yeah.
It's not just that I've had every iteration of a business. I mean, you said it, like I've made every mistake that you could possibly make. Like it's been like, so I very much know the roller coaster of life, but also entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yep. So I've been digesting the stories, and because I just got onto your newsletter most recently. So I've been enjoying the story and kind of learning a little bit more about truly, like, because you know, in your LinkedIn posts, you mention these things. You say, like, I've made all these mistakes, I've done these things, you know, and this has kind of been a deeper dive into, like, what really are those mistakes, or you know.
Yeah, well, and I share snippets on LinkedIn, but it was someone that I'm working with really recently. He was like, "Is there a place where there's like your origin story as an entrepreneur?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "I think there should be." And because I had told him some story like along the journey, and he was like, "Why do I not know this?" And he was like, I'm like kind of obsessed with you, and like I've never heard this. Where does this come from? And he was like, you need to document this. There needs to be like one place where someone can go to get the story, because I think I've been through so much as a person, but also as an entrepreneur, and a big part of my goal is for I'm comfortable oversharing, and I use that to help other people realize like they're not alone in whatever frustrating, weird, difficult thing that they're going through. Like plenty of other people, myself included, have been there and get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Cate and I say that all the time. Every time we interview someone, you never really understand what people are going through. And you see the great things that people post, but a lot of times what's missing are those moments in your life that really made you who you are. So I guess for me, that really leads into what are some of those key moments that maybe you haven't shared with other people that really impacted you and made you who you are. And a lot of times we do find that they're the challenges, they're the things that you had to overcome. So what are those things?
It's always the challenges. Like I talk about this all the time. Like I really wish we learned a lot from the like quick and easy wins. We don't. We learn from the hard stuff. Like that's what makes us who we are. It's how we learn. Like I always get really frustrated by how people talk about values. There are people will be like, "Oh, you just like look through this list of like, descriptors and like you pick some. Those are my values." No. You learn your values when you go through an experience that betrays them, right? And it's the hard stuff that makes us who we are. And one of the reasons why I was really drawn in by this conversation, the idea of the law of rhythms, is I think for a long time, I thought that the best way to go through hard things, and I can remember the chair I was sitting in my like basement studio apartment in my 20s when I had this like, oh, I've just come up with the smartest plan ever. That when something bad would happen, I would give myself one day to feel bad about it. It's like, okay, this day, like you can do whatever you want. You can drink that bottle of wine. You can go out dancing with your friends. You can watch that tearjerker movie, like whatever you need on that day. And then the next day you get up and you keep moving forward. And I really, for a really long time, thought that was like so smart, so laudable. So like, look at me, I'm so resilient. Bullshit. And the big experience and I talk about it a little bit, but I don't talk about it a ton because I just don't always know how to talk about it in like a succinct way in a freaking LinkedIn post. But and trigger warning, because this is kind of a tough conversation. But in early COVID, I was like really like violently attacked by a dog. And it was a rescue dog that my husband and I had. We didn't actually rescue him. A friend rescued him and then asked us to take care of him for 2 weeks. And 2 years later, we still had him. And he had a very like traumatic puppyhood, young life. And when my dog would bark, not always, but every now and then, it would just like trigger him. But, we were all home and my husband was not home. And he got triggered and came after me. And very, very intense. I spent 4 days in the hospital. I had pretty extensive surgery. Like you can see, I still have all these like big scars on my
Wow.
Oh my
arms.
gosh.
And, you know, I say often, like, worst, most terrifying thing that ever happened to me, one of the greatest blessings of my life. Because up until that point, that like, oh, you go through hard things, pick your chin up and you move through it, girl. Like, and I thought that was like, I thought that's how you did it. And the previous sort of 10 years had been really hard, like multiple bad health diagnoses. I was in a really like emotionally abusive kind of awful marriage, got out of that marriage, like business partner betrayal, like a million freaking things had happened and I wasn't dealing with any of it.
You were following your, I get one day and then chin up and yeah.
I mean, it's that very, I think, American, like waspy, like, oh no, you don't complain, you don't brag, you just, Protestant work ethic, you just work hard. Like, and I thought that's what you did. And I've learned since then that there's two classifications of trauma: capital T trauma and lowercase t trauma. Capital T trauma is like what we think of. It's you go to war, it's life or death stuff, you get attacked, like it's those things. Little t is the shit we've all been through. It's being in a toxic work environment, being in an unhealthy relationship, chronic health issues, being neglected by parents, being bullied as a kid. Like it's the stuff that is like not as acute. It's not going to kill you. And it lasts for way freaking longer.
It shapes you.
Burnout. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the stuff that shapes you. Yeah.
And it literally, like, it affects your brain neurologically the same way as capital T trauma, but we don't treat it the same way. We're more likely to be like, plow through it, like, press on. And so it wasn't until I had my capital T trauma that I started to actually deal with the lowercase t trauma, because it turns out, like, once you're like, I'm going to start dealing with trauma, floodgates open and you're like, okay, we're dealing with it all now. And it completely changed me. And part of what I think about of this rhythm of life is this idea that I think about of like the full spectrum of life. If you try to numb the bad, which is exactly what I was doing, you numb the good too. You can't compartmentalize that.
Numbing is numbing.
Yeah. And so you have to just like lean in and let yourself feel it all.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Sarah and I.
Brush it off and move on. That's how we were like all freaking raised.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, my dad, God bless him. And my dad has some amazing coping skills. The man meditates every day and he has really good abilities to observe negative things. But he also, I know, does this because he, my birth mother died right before I turned 1. And then my mom died 4 years ago, right? Or 5 years ago. But something he said to me almost my whole life is, I went to work the day after Wendy died. Because I couldn't change it. Your mother died and I had to go to work. And that was just kind of what we were heard when we were growing up. And I know that wasn't, he didn't say that to harm us in any way, but that was how he operated. And that was literally the times, right? That was the 70s, 80s, 90s. Like that's what it was.
And it was viewed as strong and resilient and impressive. And my father volunteered for Vietnam because he's old enough. He's technically silent generation, not baby boomer. And so he volunteered when it was like people still were totally supportive. And he thought, like, your country goes to war, you volunteer, that's what you do. And my father was like very serious when I was growing up. and he hit like 55 and now, and like, I mean, he's in his 80s now, but he is one of those old guys that like literally cries at everything. And like, my mom and I joke where it's like, you know, he kept it in for so freaking long that now it's like, it's just leaking out. Like there's no hope. And truly, like, I think it is, the problem is when you do suppress it, it will come out eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll come out at the worst freaking time and in the worst ways.
So Sarah and I talked about this in the last episode. You know, she actually developed like a seizure disorder, like when her body needed her to fucking start paying attention. I broke my leg twice in my life in like these horrible, like destructive ways, like not just you get in a cast, but like you have multiple surgeries, you know, you're laid up forever type of shit, you know, and that needed to happen both times because I needed to shut up and pay attention to the things around me. I needed silence, you know, and they did turn into these blessings because, you know, the first one was when I realized that I needed that how I got my way. You know, I needed to tell her that I was going to wait for her. But I know that had I not broken my leg, I would have continued down the path that I was on. I'm positive, right? So before the dog attack, was there something going on in your life, Kasey, that you needed to like?
Dude, so on this topic, if you haven't read the book, When the Body Says No, by Gabor Mate, do it. There will be things in there though that will like completely rock you. One quick example, I think it's the second chapter, he starts talking about cancer, and they've replicated the study multiple times where they will take women who've just had a breast biopsy and don't have the results back, and they'll do an interview. And based on the questions that she answers about her life, they can predict with 96% accuracy if she is going to have cancer or not. And the most common indicator, was suppressed anger.
Yep.
Just saying. And yeah, so I have a bunch of health, chronic health kind of diagnoses. So I have Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune thyroid. I was diagnosed with Lyme. I don't actually think I have Lyme. I just have a bunch of weird kind of chronic health things. And I've just learned that I also I have an addiction to busyness. And that's the danger for me of entrepreneurship is as an entrepreneur, there's always shit that can be done.
Right.
I can I think for a long time I used this excuse, and it still is something I struggle with, of being like, oh no, I'm like not dealing with what is going on inside because I just have too much shit to do. And my body will get to this point and be like, oh girl, sorry, but like we're forcing you down. So I've had broken legs. Over the holidays, I had to have 2 dental surgeries. If you guys scroll back on my LinkedIn, there's a really beautiful picture of the right side of my face insanely swollen, and I like look like Quasimodo. Like it's really, I mean, like I have so many of these things. A year ago, I got long haul COVID. I've had a bunch of things, and it is my body being like, sweetheart, calm the fuck down. Slow down, take care of yourself. And it's not easy. It doesn't come naturally to me. And it's something that I just like keep chipping away at and keep working on.
I love this comment from Divine. She said, the body knows. It collects everything energetically and physically. Yes. And that's so true. I was actually just talking with my depth psychologist, and I was talking about a particular how I was having to talk to someone about a particular issue. I won't get into the details. It's a little bit more private, but one of the things that she had reminded me of is she said, okay, this person is acting in this particular way. It was a trigger And so she said, the thing that you have to remember is that until that person goes in and understands the first time that they felt that particular way and they deal with that, they're going to continue to have these additional triggers. And it was really just a reminder for all of us that when we are triggered by something, one, how are we handling that particular, incident? Are we handling it in a way of knowing that this is something that's good for us or not good for us? How are we then approaching that situation with whatever it is, or are we lashing out at someone? And therefore, it's still something within our body that still needs to be released, which is really a part of the law of rhythm is patterns. Like when you see the patterns, it's like, okay, what do we need to do to disrupt the pattern? Because the pattern is continuing. So the only way to stop the pattern is one, to disrupt it, to make, if it's two people that are arguing, both people have to go back and reflect, like, is this something that's healthy for me? If this isn't healthy, then what do we need to do to change it? Because doing the same thing will just create the same issue. So I loved, that, those were things that she reminded me of, is that the feelings, we're so much in our minds with things that we really do have to spend some time with the feelings and why it is we're feeling the way that we feel.
Well, I love the way that you put this, because the other thing that comes up for me as you're saying that is, it's also, a lot of us are instinct, and I say instinct, it's not instinct, it's training, is to be hard on ourselves. And so we notice the pattern, but then we're like, God damn it, like, what are you doing? No. It's really all about, like, I think the way you really do disrupt the pattern is not through, cultivating your inner critic and sort of self-bullying, but it really is about that self-love and treating yourself with the love and the care that you probably didn't get. And that's why you're behaving that way. And so a lot of it for me is that, like, I love my parents. We have a good relationship, but they were very, very, very hands-off when I was growing up. And so my reality as a child was just that, like, I was very lonely and I was very alone. And so I grew up with this sense that, like, my needs don't matter. No one is going to care about them, and I'm on my own for them. And so that's why when I say I have an addiction to business, that's my way of dissociating. That's my way of being like, girl, your needs don't fucking matter. So let's pay attention to these other things. And so the only way that I can, like, break that is not through freaking discipline, but through self-love.
Right. And it's not necessarily that we are going to conquer the pattern and disrupting the pattern, right? Like, you will continue to probably struggle with the addiction to busyness, right? But the fact that you have awareness around it now, the fact that you recognize it and you say, okay, all right, Kasey, I see you need some love right now, and you put something else into action. That's the disruption. It's not that you're going to never do that again. Because it's probably
only
right. Because it's embedded. It's who you are. Right. Right. So.
Yeah. And it really, the key thing that I think you talked about is the self-compassion, the self-love. Like, when we don't have that, there's no amount of love that can be given to you, no amount of recognition that can be given to you until you have done that for yourself, because you can't give what you don't give yourself.
Right. Yeah. There's a great comment, couple great comments. Reparent the inner child with love, creativity, and acceptance. Listening to your body helps you listen to your intuition. Oh, this is Jenna. You become more in tune with yourself when you love yourself. But I think listening, like, our higher self, our intuition, our subconscious, whatever we want to call it, it's there, and we can't always access it, but slowing down certainly helps us get closer. And listening to our bodies does as well.
Well, someone taught me this, that like your mental, your sort of rational self, your mental self, and your emotional self, they are loud and they are kind of demanding and they will yell if you let them.
Mhm.
But your inner wisdom, that truest self, that spirit, that like that gut, whatever you want to call it, she whispers.
Mm.
And so the only way you are going to be able to hear her
Mm.
is if you are able to quiet down the shouting of the mental side and the emotional side. And like I had therapy yesterday, and my therapist, we were talking about it. Like my instinct is to intellectualize everything.
Mhm.
Like so many times we'll be talking through something and I'll be like, Kasey, you're in your head.
Yep.
Like, let's get back into body. Let's get back into feelings. And I will always be like, okay, now let me intellectualize these like, okay, but it takes work. And so each of us have this like sort of default response that is sort of our trauma response. And the best thing we can do is learn how to sort of navigate that and like quiet that down so we can get back to that inner wisdom.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to this comment. This is why I fucking cuss. Let it out. I'm with you, Divine. And so I think that that's also some of the things that we've been taught is to, as you were saying, bottle this stuff up. It was funny. My daughter was even talking to me about this, and she's like, you allow me to be who I am. She goes, but Dad, she's like, I feel like I'm afraid to sometimes be me, and to like the freedom of things are more closed off.
Yeah.
And she said, and she goes, she told me this today. She goes, some of my friends don't want to come over because I then become Dad. I'm like, don't sit on the arm of that chair. You're going to break it. Don't do this. Don't do that. So she has this, her father's, the things, because he's very, he wants things a certain way, because that is something he has to deal with.
Yeah.
That is his inner child of, you have to be perfect. You have to be like this, that he still needs to deal with. But he's also, having that stuff go down. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, so the next time we have your friends over, let's have Dad be off doing golf. And you and I will have them and we'll do whatever we want. And she's like, yes.
Well, and I think like that's the thing. I mean, your daughter is, how old is your daughter?
14.
Okay, she's 14. Let's be real. This is always the thing that we learn, like when we get married and then you go visit the in-laws and you're like, oh, my spouse just turned into a completely different person when we were with his parents. And that was especially like my first marriage. And I remember being like, I would feel so guilty and ashamed that I would dread seeing his parents. And his parents were so nice to me, so kind to me. And I remember talking to my mom and I was like, I just feel like an asshole because I never want to spend time with them. And they're lovely. They're so kind. And then my mother, we had a joint family Thanksgiving. And my mom was like, what is wrong with Eric? Why is he being so weird? And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, oh my God, he's like a different person. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's it.
He's different.
He was so different around his parents. And that was what like put me off. Because then I was like, who is this? I don't know how to be. And it made me super uncomfortable. And I didn't get it. I totally didn't get it. It took my mom, who was like just a little bit more detached. She was like, what is he doing? Like, he's so weird. Like, and that's the thing, we don't, and I know I do this. I mean, my now husband, he will joke. My mother's name is Cody, and he'll be like, I'll say something, and I'll be like, ooh, that was Cody. And I'll be like, oh, damn it, like, oh, Because my mother is like, your husband or your daughter's father, perfectionist. Everything needs to be perfect. And it's like, I've nicknamed my inner critic Cody. Don't tell my mother that. But whenever like I'm being mean to myself, I'll be like, Cody, we don't have time for that shit. Like, not right now.
I love it. I love it. And you can still have like, you have a good relationship with your parents,
Yeah.
like, you know, because she didn't intend to do that, right? Like that wasn't her, well, maybe, but.
Well, no, but what it really is, it's, we have to have compassion for our parents because yeah, they totally screwed us up. But when you look at their parents, they did
a lot better.
bang up job given the toolkit that they had. Like my mother's mother was married 5 times, all to alcoholics, was like a total party. Like my parents have been married for 52 years. Like my mother, but both of my parents have done a great job in comparison to their parents. Like
they broke some cycles.
Or
Right.
I don't know, mellowed the cycles out maybe a little bit. They're like not quite as intense. I won't go as far as to say that they broke them, but
right. They try.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Well, so we went from the question that Sarah asked around what are these kind of huge things, and you talked about the dog attack and how significant it was. And first, I just like thank you for sharing that. I mean, that was like super vulnerable, and what a key moment, you know, like. And then we already talked a little bit about like what patterns needed to be disrupted, or what you kind of needed to be, you know, recognize, what you needed to kind of recognize in those moments. What do you have like any suggestions for our audience around like how to learn from those experiences, how to kind of deal with those big things, and with the grace and the self-love that you know you have to have, right? Like, so we all know that, especially those that are super empathetic and that are really good at nurturing others, right? We know that self-love is super important, and we'll tell our people around us all fucking day long, you got to love yourself. You got, you know,
great at taking our own advice.
Right. Yeah. Do you have like some tools or some tactics or some insights that we can, you know, soak up a little bit as to
So I think there's 2 really big things. One is to get curious. So oftentimes, and I think this is the biggest thing that I think I've learned post dog attack and I've gotten much better at, is when an emotion is coming up, an emotion, a repeated thought, anything that is like feels, I don't know, I'm having a significant reaction to, I try to like genuinely just get really curious about it. So sometimes that's journaling, sometimes that's just sitting quietly, breathing in and out. And like, and my therapist kind of taught me this, of like, if you have something that keeps coming up, what you often want to do is you want to sit there, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and like conjure up that feeling and like almost try to stir it up, make it more dramatic and really feel it with it. And then notice what comes up, because damn near every time a memory from years ago will come up, or a feeling or a thought, and you can start to understand what actually is going on and what this is. And I have to, and I think a lot of other people do as well, is like, I will, as soon as something initially comes up, I want to like intellectualize it and understand it, but it's like really sitting with it. And it's genuinely fascinating. And I think that idea of like being curious about it, it sort of lessens the stakes and the intensity. You're just exploring, you're trying to learn, right? And then the other thing that I think is really important is this idea of, you know, what I said before, of like full spectrum living, which means, and I think the curiosity is part of it, but of like, really embracing what you are going through so that you can learn from it. And one of the things when I was like rushing on and not really processing things, I made the same mistakes over and over and over again. Like, I married a narcissist. I then formed a business partnership with a narcissist. Like, I didn't fucking learn from that. Like, I just didn't, because I wasn't really sitting with it and getting curious about it and kind of taking the time to like learn from it. And so oftentimes when it's hard, we want to move through it as fast as we can.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, one, it stays stuck in your body. Two, you don't fucking learn the lesson. And so you will be doomed to repeat it, and it won't, like, all the hard stuff, it has the potential to change us and change our lives for the better. But that's only if we like let it and we kind of do the work to learn those lessons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's always interesting, though, when you're in the moment, like, you have this choice in front of you, and you don't take the time to really sit with it and feel with it. And sometimes we do get stuck in our heads, like, that's, thinking about the choice of like getting in business with the next person. So, you don't know what you don't know about that person. But how could you have, sat with yourself and said, okay, is this the right decision? Or was the lesson to go ahead and go through it because there were still things to learn? So I guess, sometimes it's like, sometimes you don't know what's about to happen, and there's still further lessons to learn, and you just don't know them. And even though you might sit with it and you think you're taking the right decision, it's really understanding how to sit with your heart and feel what's right.
And I think, look, at least for me, I have this tendency to rush through things.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the last few years, I stopped making resolutions, and I set a theme for the year.
Mm-hmm.
And my theme for 2025 is slow is smooth. And I don't know if you know the full phrase, but it's slow is smooth is fast.
Yes.
And because I have a tendency to be like, I want to rush through it. I want to make the decision. I want to do the thing.
Yep.
And the problem is I then skip really important steps. And frankly, I ignore the signs and I ignore the red flags. And I'm like, nah, it'll work out. Like, I don't sit with it. And so a lot of it for me is slowing down and creating the habits, the routine, the practices that help me slow down. So one of the things that I've started doing again and has been super helpful for me is morning pages. And morning pages, for people that don't know, it's from a book, The Artist's Way. And Julia Cameron, she really says that you should handwrite 3 full pages first thing in the morning, every morning.
Every morning, yep. 20 minutes of writing or 30 or 3 full pages.
It's 3 full pages is what she says, and it takes everybody a slightly different amount of time. Yeah. I can't do the handwriting thing, and I don't do it absolutely first thing in the morning, but it's typically, not this morning because we're up early, but it's typically the first thing I do when I sit at my desk. I write 750 words or more, and it's super helpful. It's just stream of consciousness. And so it's just like whatever is coming up. And what's always really interesting for me is like, it gives me a time to sort of explore things that I'm going through. And it's helped me create more of a journaling practice so that when stuff is coming up and I'm not really sure what it is or what it means, I'm a lot more likely to then sit down and just sort of explore it and like try to work through some of these things rather than ignoring the signs and rushing through them, which I think is more, I was going to say My therapist has corrected me a million times. He's like, it's not your instinct, it's not your intuition, it's your training.
Right.
And that's very different.
Yeah. Along these same lines, so I asked a question this week to people. I asked them if they have an inner monologue, because not everybody does. Do you have an actual voice inside that you hear?
Yeah, I do.
Does that voice change? What does that voice sound like?
Sounds more like my mom when my poor mother. I'm being so mean to her. It sounds more like my mother when she's being mean.
Interesting.
But it's interesting. Like we were talking about this. So something that I've been doing more and more lately. So I have a practice that I go through with like all my clients. It's the first exercise I have them do when we start working together. And it's something that I call chart your path to future you. And it's I took the sort of foundation of it from it's a woman named Debbie Millman, and she did an interview with Tim Ferriss. This is seriously like 7 years ago when I first heard it. And I don't know if she still is, but she was like a professor for creatives, I think, at NYU. And she would do this exercise or have her students do it. And she would say that students would come back like 7 years later and be like, oh my God, all of these things came true. And basically what you do is you write a short story, a super, super detailed short story that is a day in your life, in like your ideal life 10 years into the future. And my recommendation always is like, you write it in like super detailed, like genuinely, like what wakes you up in the morning? When you wake up, like what bed are you in? Where is your bed? What sheets are on that bed? Like who's lying next to you? When you sit up and you put your feet on the floor, like what does that feel like on your bare feet? And then like you go through your day. What are you doing? What projects have you just finished? What are you preparing for? Who do you hang out with? What clothes are you wearing? What food do you eat? Like all these other things. So that you can then look at like, okay, what does future me do that current me does not do? How does future me show up in a way that current me doesn't? And I've developed it and I've shared it with my students, but I use it for myself, or like I have a series of AI prompts where you can feed that story in, and then you basically ask AI to act as future you and give you advice. And so I have this like long running chat with AI, but it's future me. And the thing I love about it is like what it spits out is like, it sounds like the best freaking version of me. It's like the most empowered, loving, badass version of me, like giving me advice. And so it's very much helped me have more of that voice in my head. And when I can't have it in my head, I go to that conversation and be like, oh my God, I'm super overwhelmed. Like, can you help me figure this out? And I was telling you two before we went live, like the very first time I did it, I was on a flight with Wi-Fi, and I like burst into tears because the response was like so good and exactly what I needed in that moment. I was like so overwhelmed, and it's kind of amazing.
And so I'm going to post a link to it. So you also have a link to this where people can go through this exercise, correct?
Yes.
I am so grateful that you are sharing this with us. I'm so excited. It's going to be hard for me to literally continue my day not start writing that story immediately, because it's like Jenna said it in the comments. This is like manifesting at its absolute best.
Yes.
But in a way that you can continue to learn from it and envision it and incorporate it into your life and like feel it, right? Because oh my God, you're a genius.
It's actionable. Because like legit, it's the last sort of the couple of months for me has just been super, super busy. And I've had these moments of like total overwhelm where I'm like panicking, and I'll be like, okay, act as future me. Like, here's what I'm going through. What do I need to do? And so it is both it has that like emotional part of it, emotional and spiritual and like all of these other things. But it's also then like future me is like, okay, girl, here's what we're going to do, like breaking it down. And so I then have a plan, and I love a fucking plan.
Yeah. And it's totally related to the law of rhythm, because it is helping you in those moments disrupt, what you, yeah.
I love this. This from Jenna. She said, "And Kate, this is how I got my wife."
So I don't know if she was on, but I said that earlier, right? Like that is how, by slowing down. But like Jen and I each have this story of how we manifested each other, and how like we've become like what we wanted, and how we obsessively got there.
So awesome.
It's so cool. I love it. I love us. But I want to just take an opportunity, because we have so many people in our audience that are business people, of course, and that are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs. Can you, and I know that your philosophies and your programs are quite in depth. So I hate to ask you to kind of like give us a high level summary, but at the same time, talk a little bit about, why you start with the future you, and then what comes next. Give us a little bit more about how you have taken all of these entrepreneurial experiences that you have had, and how that is manifesting in your programs and what you offer to your clients.
Yeah. So, okay. So when I look at like 95% of the advice for kind of solopreneurs and solo business owners, I think a lot of it is real crap. There's a huge emphasis, and like the vast majority of courses you can buy, programs you can join, all the rest are all about how to acquire more business. Some of it will a little bit be about offer design, but it's mostly about like marketing and sales. It's just about how you acquire business. There is almost nothing out there that helps you figure out what the fuck you want to do in the first place. Mm-hmm. And my sort of philosophy on this is I talk about something so my program is called the Solo CEO. And what I talk about is this idea of the solo CEO sweet spot. And I think the solo CEO sweet spot is this, imagine this Venn diagram. And on one side, it's like your ideal customer. Who are they? What do they care about? What are their values? What are their problems? What are their goals? Like all of these other things. And the other is you, your skills, your passions, your triumphs, the hard things you've been through, the stuff you've overcome. Like, what is your zone of genius? What are your unique points of view about you and your work and your industry? What are the strange, weird, different things about you, your background, like how you do things, your vibe, your style, all the rest. And so it's like, what is this like unique differentiator? And like, what are the outcomes you can deliver for people? You gotta be really freaking clear on both of these circles so that you can find this natural, beautiful, aligned intersection in the middle. And I think the vast majority of the time I look at least for service-based businesses and the kind of solo businesses or small businesses, most of our issues come from either the most common, I'll be real, is no real clarity on either of these. They're not circles. They're like nebulous clouds. Or it is leaning too much on one side and not the other. So my first business, I leaned really hard on the ideal customer. I could get business. I could grow it. Like it was really working. We were making really good money. I fucking hated it. I ultimately went to total burnout because I'd built a business doing what people wanted to pay for, but had nothing to do with what my real strengths were, what lit me up, like who I wanted to work with, like none of those things. then after dog attack, I was like, oh, I want to be super aligned and I want to do this stuff for me. And so I started doing shit and I couldn't sell it. And most solopreneurs that I talk to, they're in the boat where it's all just one giant cloud and none of it is clear. Like they're relying on word of mouth and referrals and all this other stuff. They don't actually have control over any of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they try to start figuring things out, basically the pendulum swings in one direction or another. And what I do with people is help them find that clarity and start to put the pieces in place to like build something that they love, that plays to their strengths, that is uniquely them, but also that the market really wants to pay good money for, and starting to put those pieces into place.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
And the amount of knowledge and education that you provide for free. Like just in following you, I mean, there are so many nuggets that you drop along the way to help all of the community. So if you are not following Kasey Jones, make sure that you do, because you will get something out of it in both of those realms.
Thank you. And that's my goal. Like, I think there's so much crap out there. And I also, there's on social media, there's just so much that is all about like hustle and grind. And it's all like, young, healthy, single white dudes in their 20s. And it's like, you know what? There's a lot of us that look at that and are like, that doesn't jive. That doesn't feel right. And so I try to be really freaking honest and really blunt and also do as much as I can to kind of give so that people can be like, oh, wait, I can do it differently. I can build a business that is profitable and that I love in a way that works for me and the kind of life that I want to lead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love this. And for me, it's really fits in well with what we're trying to do as an overall movement, is helping people to understand more about themselves, being authentically and fearlessly themselves. And really what you're doing is you're helping people to really understand who they are as a person. And then also, who are the people out there that actually fit with what you're doing. I mean, it sounds basic, but it's not. In a lot of ways.
It's not easy.
I know, exactly. It's not easy. It sounds simple. It sounds basic, but it's a lot harder than you really think it is. So I hope that people follow you, check out your page, and also thank you so much for the resource. I'm excited. I'm with Cate on wanting to do the future self,
really
and
fun.
then we're working with AI, because I love working with AI, and it provides so many cool insights into things. So I really love that idea.
Yeah, you guys will have to tell me what you think and what comes up, because it's it'll surprise you in the best way, and it's just like, it's really fun. It's one of my favorite uses of AI these days.
I just think it's genius. Like I just think, it's absolutely genius. And I'm super excited as well, because, you said you've created a Kasey bot. I tell Jenna and people all the time, like, I have a new best friend. Yeah. His name is Claude. Yeah. He's my AI, like he is my best friend,
because you have that, because you've already trained him. When you do this, it's going to be it will be spooky how much you're like, oh my God, this is future me. This is future me, like coaching me, like future you is going to be your new like go-to coach.
It's so
kind of a therapist also.
Yeah. It's super cool. And I think you could sell that, Kasey, because it's so cool. Like you could totally productize it in some way. Love it. I can't wait. Yeah. I'm so pissed I have meetings.
It's okay. Something to look forward to.
I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Kasey, thank you so much for being here
Oh,
today.
this was fun.
And the only thing that I'm disappointed about today is that we don't have more time to talk, because I think that Cate and I could continue to talk with you for a while and really dig into things further. So we would love to just continue to stay in touch with you, and I hope that other people will get in touch with you as well. And one, I also just wanted to thank our audience for bearing with us with the technology issues, because I found out that even we weren't posting out to LinkedIn as well. So even whenever I was adding things, so I had to personally go over there. So I appreciate people, some people stayed, some people jumped. So thank you for bearing with us with, whatever technology things going on today. So thank you for that, and also for jumping over and all the interactiveness, because we didn't get to pull up even a small portion of the comments, but I really appreciate them for reading them along the way.
Yeah. I do think people were able to watch through LinkedIn.
They were.
So we were streamed to LinkedIn. It's just that they couldn't comment, or we couldn't see their comments.
We couldn't see.
So, we can go back and interact with the comments, which I plan to do, of course.
Yeah, I will do that too.
Yeah, but we'll get it fixed. We've had this issue with StreamYard before. So
one thing, I did another one this week, and he used Riverside.
Okay.
I didn't even know you could use Riverside. Like I know for recording podcasts and things like that, but I don't. And he streamed directly from Riverside, so I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Paul, thanks, Paul. He said, "Thanks all. I need to absorb some of the positive energy before heading into the weekend." And that's also what we love, is that we feel like the weekly shows, especially on the Friday, really jolt us into the weekend and having a better weekend, and then hopefully having a better Monday, an easier Monday as you come into the next week.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks all. Go on and have your badass weekend and your badass Monday.